Hello and welcome to another tactics video with my good friend Darnish. I don't think a ton has changed. We wanted to break down some things against Tottenham, as I think personally the performance was maybe a little bit better than some of the
Yeah,
reactions would have suggested. Um, and talk about what we may have learned, where we hopefully the things we can improve over the next few games, because a lot of stuff is probably not going to change. But first of all, how you doing, Darnish?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Evening does. Can't lie. I'm half looking forward to this Everton game, just because we keep talking. We talk week in, week out about Man United, and everyone says it's okay. The season just a write off. It is, but kind of like I want to see the performances improve and improve. So every game is still very important. Um,
Yep.
and I feel like I'm just waiting. We've got a lot of time on the training ground this week. There was no midweek Thursday game,
Yeah.
so I want to see
And no
how
stacking
how
of
they're
5, 6
trending.
injuries this week either. We've gotten players back this time
Yeah,
too.
some Ugate's back, Euro's back, and also I know that David Moyes and Everton have been resurgent, but I don't know whoever watched them against Palace. They weren't they weren't really good. Like they're not they didn't really. They've got injuries as well, but that's not. If you ask anybody who watched that game, even some of the Everton fans that I speak to, they kind of shithoused it.
Yeah. Well, you would expect that because I think, just on that subject, it's a kind of a good note is that, some of the critique is, people look and say, oh, David Moyes came into Everton, has transformed them. No, he hasn't.
Mm.
Going from not picking up points to picking up points is sometimes not that much for a team. When a new manager comes in and is just trying to do a little bit better than the old one, but doing a lot of the same things, a lot of the same ideas, a lot of the same stuff with a team that, in a process that's not hyper specific, they're not really being transformed. I mean, I always go back to our interim sequences. Ralph Rangnick showed up in mid-season and it was like 2 games, like, oh my god, we're back. We had that first half against Crystal Palace. It's like he's transformed our team, overnight.
Do you
By the
remember? Do
end,
you remember the first game we were pressing? Everybody's oh my
oh
god,
yeah,
we're pressing monsters. Turned out Palace were awful. I remember I went to that game.
I know.
Went to Old Trafford for that game. Palace just gave every ball away. I think they were.
Yep.
I think Ranić had aura for one game. He was scared by
Yeah.
his aura.
Yep.
But
And then it was worse than it was when we sacked Ollie by the end of the season, right?
absolutely,
And and
it was such a mess. It was such a. But that was one point where I think I don't know if you can confirm with this or not, where it felt like the dressing room got toxic, and he was saying that they got
yep,
toxic, and
for
they
sure.
got rid of that. It feels
But
like
that kind of shows, right? Like you can just get some quick results, doing something, but it doesn't mean anything's changed. It doesn't mean anything's
no.
actually
I
better.
will
It's
say
like,
that like the win against I think it was Brighton Everton had right. They beat
yes,
Brighton and they lost to Villa. They smacked up Leicester. It was a really good, and then it was a 1-1 draw against Liverpool, and then they've had one win against somebody else, I think. Oh, Palace, actually. Um, the wins that they've had at home, he's changed a little bit. They press a lot higher. They press with more intensity, but that's mainly because of Goodison Park.
yes,
So
emotion. Yeah.
it's that emotion of like the Everton are like a mid-table version of Man United in a way, where their fans are just bloody fed up of everything. And if you look at players who have come in and out of that club, managers as well, you go, he's not bad. Marco Silva's at Fulham. What happened there?
Yep.
Oh, wait, Ademola Lookman. Ademola Lookman's at Atalanta. It wasn't he at
There's some
Everton once?
guy. There's some guy at Madrid who managed at Everton, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
I wonder what's his name. So it's very similar in that sense, but they are
Mm.
there's he's put a bit more umph in them, and it's just a difficult place to go to.
Yeah.
I don't like facing target men strikers. If Maguire plays, fine. You can take
You
care of
will.
Beto,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting game. I want to see United control the game. I
Yes.
feel like I feel like go back to when Amarim first came in. Okay, fine. Chances were still a little bit hard to come by, but what was happening was they'd control the game for most, I don't know, 70-80% of it.
Yep.
Then someone would do some daft shit like Martinez would watch the ball go over his post, Onana would have a
Yeah, the
mistake,
fourth
and then
game, yeah.
I
Yeah.
would rather concede like that, get that control back, and then hopefully find these gaps, find these spaces with some rotations. But let's go through the Tottenham game, sort of quick one of like good and bad, and then we can go through back.
Yes, yeah, we can kind of go through the thread. I mean, just my overall thoughts on it. I didn't think it was that bad. You know, when I was watching it,
I didn't.
for the better part of the game, I thought we were the better team. I thought we had more good chances. I thought we had maybe more good opportunities because not all of them I think evolved into chances, right? But I think you see some of the differences. Like sometimes the game can come down to we miss a one-on-one with the keeper, you know, and they don't. You know, they get a shot in that rebounds off Onana's hands and they clean it up. We get two runs in on the keeper, a free header, we don't make them. I think people would see the game a lot differently. But you know, and not to say it was perfect, but I felt like there was a lot of signs of like, hey, we can make chances here. You know,
Hmm.
we can get opportunities here. A lot of times where Dorgu's barreling down that outside, and it's like we forgot he was playing. You know, the rest of the team like forget he's there and ignore him. And it's like those are the ones where it's like that one pass that they're not used to making, that one run that's not always there, it can create just a much better opportunity. And it feels like we were like not making half chances, but getting really good situations, but not taking it to that one little step further to creating big chances out of it. We did have
Yeah,
a couple of big chances too, but it felt like it could have broken open for us quite a lot in that game.
I think so. It's an interesting. I think there's with each game there's a couple of key points. The first one that I'll address, and then we can go on to the in possession stuff. The out of possession stuff in the first half, and you could see Amram on the
Compare this.
touchline. He was
Yeah.
raging. Amram on the touchline was absolutely raging with what was going on, because it wasn't working. Without the ball, it wasn't working, and Jed Spence was just running through our midfield and through the defense there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think this was instructional. I think that it was pretty clear that if you just from this image and the last one, Fernandez playing as a midfielder, he's playing in the two here.
Yeah.
But I clearly think that he was instructed to close down Jed Spence or Madison when they dropped deep for the ball on the left. It must have
Yep.
been absolute. It was too. If you see things happen in a game in a repeated manner and they keep happening and they keep happening, it's because the players have been told to do a certain thing,
Yeah.
and the outcome is the opposition reacting to that. So gathered Fernandez. It's Fernandez and Casemiro in the two here. That's important.
Yep.
He's not playing in the front three. He
Yeah.
goes out to
Yeah.
press Madison or Jed Spence on the left. That creates space in behind him, and there was always a
Yes.
2v1. Always, always. Sometimes he'd go to press Jed Spence, wouldn't get the ball, and it'd be Madison and Spence there. What what we have to sort of bear in mind is number one, Casemiro cannot marshal those 40 yards anymore. Number two, Spurs are really weird because they'll find space like this and then sometimes not exploit it,
Yep.
which goes to show like they've scored a lot this year. They've scored 48 times, which I think is the most in the bottom half. I think it's the second most in the league actually.
They've scored a
Um,
lot of goals. Yes. Yeah.
but they didn't really make as much use as they should have of this. So
Yes.
you got to look at like where Casemiro is, right? He's got Bergval behind him, so if he goes across, the pass is free to Bergval there. So I think the instruction was Bruno to go out to Spence, and the other instruction was whenever they have the ball wide, and whenever Madison is deep, and whenever Spence is deep, everybody go over that way. If you
Mm.
go to like one of the other images, you'll see I think six of the United players go over to whichever side Madison and
Right.
Spence have it.
Heavy shift. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one where it's like it's pretty clear that all of them have been instructed to go to one side to their detriment.
Mm.
Because as if one United team, if they all go over to one side, that means the switch in the space is number one in the center, number two on
Yep.
the opposite side. Now, sometimes what would happen from that image is Mazraoui would come out and mark Madison, That's the
Yep.
right thing to do there. That is
Yes,
absolutely the right thing
yes,
to do, and
yeah,
the only thing that you can do in there. The other times, if you go to another one, just the one after,
yep.
yeah.
Let's go to this one.
This,
Yeah.
this is really the one that kind of highlights it for me because all the players go over to Madison. If you want to just go
Yep.
back one, this is in the same sequence.
Okay, so everybody shifts to the middle here after they pass it to Madison.
Mazraoui is doing the right thing here. Fernandez is doing what he's instructed to do, which is go over and track the man when they have it a wide left and deep build up. Even Xerxes in the right position here. The problem is within 2 seconds, because one pass opens up a gap, because your pivot is so high, because Mazraoui is so high, he literally finds space just by dropping a little bit deeper. And you can see all the players are scattered if you just go to the next one.
Yeah.
This
Yep.
is literally there's a 10-second, there's a 7-second gap between this. You can see
Mm,
because the players were over to one side, it scattered them. That's the same play. It's Madison. He's just
yep.
moved from 5 yards from the right inward, and then they have too much space. So this was a big problem in the first half. What I did like is he did change this. It started
Okay.
working more in the second half. If you go to where it starts with the tweak,
Let's go down to here. Yeah.
just so what he instructed them to do, and this is what you should do against Tottenham Hotspur because Ipswich were the ones who provided the blueprint at the start of the season for me. And then teams started following it. Tottenham like to have little players in build up and a lot of players up front. It's
Yes.
Ange's like way of being like, no, we're really attacking, and they've got
Yeah.
injuries, so sometimes the player profiles don't match what they actually want to do. But if you compress the two players in build up, you start to push them back. What he
Yeah. I'm right here.
instructed is basically one of the fullbacks to always push up, always push up. Um, because if you do that, the ball will sort of squirm away. And from where they have it here, Hoyland is going to close down the player. It goes down
Yes.
the line, and Garnacho ends up just blocking it. So there was 20
Yep.
minutes in the second half where I was like, this is a really good flurry. Again,
Yeah.
you could look at how high Dallo is here. There was a
Yep.
20-minute flurry in the second half where I thought they've got to score here because this is working. This is really working. And this is
Yep.
when I think the Xerxes chance came and they were having a
Yep.
lot of possession. And the one positive I want to highlight here, now there's two aspects to it as well that I need to caveat. Spurs do give you a lot of space.
Yeah.
They have this weird press where, like, look how much space Casemiro's in there. They have this
Hmm.
weird out of possession press where it's like they will press high, but they'll leave a lot of players free. The problem United have had, they haven't gotten this space in the other games, even against Leicester, even against Southampton, because they know how to set up against them. For some reason, Spurs just tend to give teams a lot of space. But
Yep.
the good thing I think from this, if you want a positive, number one, they did find the pass to the fullback. So at
Right.
least they all realized, okay, we've got space. Let's execute it properly. So they would turn it around and look for Dogu high or look for
Yep.
Dallo high, and that's where the space was coming. That's why we
Which
saw
is
some crossing from Garnacho.
which is
There you
what
go.
we want, right? Like, I mean, this is we've
You want to see
seen
this?
the best moments from United. I think under Amorim so far have often come from this, where the ball's to the middle, whether it's in the midfield or a center back, and they find that that wing back running up on either side, and they're able to get that ball out to him to bypass the press, to get around him, and to move. And I think it was better with Dorgu's natural athleticism and left-footedness on that side, that he was getting up the pitch just a bit more. And I also even think Dallo was doing better on the right, getting up the pitch a bit more during the game. But we know Amram wants to do that, and hopefully, I mean, my hope is, because we saw a lot of it against Tottenham, that now with Dorgu here, we're going to see it more often rather than, given how attacking he is, then because most of the things, like when you pointed it out, defensively and offensively, pushing the fullbacks up, it's
Yeah.
like really making them wing backs, not defenders. So it's not a 5; it really is a 3, with them up at least by the midfield or higher. Seems to be when we do best on both ends.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The runs from Dogu were good. and the runs from Dallo were good. It's just Garnacho rarely ever passed it to Doku. It's but to be positive, they were finding the pass at least. They saw that
Yeah.
the there. It was probably because Spurs are bad out of possession and they gave them that space. At least they knew it was there, and at least they knew the right ball to play. The last 20 minutes, I couldn't really make sense of. Like, there's no analysis for those. That last
Yeah, it kind of just lost any shape and form, and yeah.
It's literally just two drunk people fighting home for like the last taxi
Yeah.
home. It was just Fernandez just kept cannoning the ball forward every 2 minutes. There wasn't really, I can't really make sense of it. It was literally like Tottenham attacked, someone would have a shot, it'd get blocked. I think we
Yeah.
defended about 40 set pieces at the end.
Oh
United,
yeah.
United would go up the other end. Someone would make a bad decision, and that was that really. There was gilt-edged chances in the first half, I think, from Garnacho. There
Yeah.
was a good
And
chance
then
from
this
Berg.
one too, I think was pretty good. I mean,
It was good, but I'm not really, there's not. It has to be a really brilliant finish. You have to like roof it or go
what do
top
you
corner
think?
there.
What do you think about Dorgu in this? Because I went through this in a replay, and I know it would be hard for a forward to see it, but in a live picture of this, which I didn't notice in the game,
This is
when
the first time I'm noticing it actually,
I
even
did
though
a
I'm the one
replay.
who made it.
I know. It was the same for me. I went to this play and I was like, wait a second, because by the time Garnacho hits it, Dorgu's about here, and he's
Yeah,
so fast. He's well ahead. Who is this? Is this Ben Davies? I don't know. No, it's not Ben Davies. Maybe it's cool. I don't know who that is actually for Tottenham. But he is so fast. He's in here wide open before Garnacho hits it, like well ahead of his marker. And I'm thinking, these are the things where it's like, yeah, it's a hard finish for Garnacho. It's not even the finish in this one. He gets it on target at least this time. The first half one, he just sends it into the stands. Needed to do a lot better. But it's like these types of things where I feel like you can take a half chance and make it a whole chance. You know what I mean? If we
yeah.
just little things like that, because I didn't notice it in real time, but I look at it and I'm like, if that's Liverpool, Dorgu is scoring a goal here. I've seen them do that time and time again when they'll hit fast and they will
Yeah.
find the guy across the box instead of just they will find. I think they even had against Aston Villa. They even had a goal
That
almost
was the
exactly
Nunez
like
chance.
that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
exactly that.
they will always find that other guy to make a better chance, and I think that's what most of the top teams do. Is so often they'll find that one extra pass that makes it a really good
I didn't even
opportunity.
see this. I did not
Me
notice.
neither.
Even even though I made it, I was like, yeah, couldn't really. I will say that like Porro got across pretty quickly, so like he only had 2 touches, so it was either
Correct.
going to be a
Correct.
touch and pass or a touch and shot. But
Yep.
he's not seen him. It's a tight angle
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
It's just
I
something
think
I hope we improve, because maybe
yeah,
there's
decision
it's
making
like
and
those
attack
are the
has
fine
been poor.
margins, right? That's like it goes from nothing to goal, and it can be so little.
The decision making has been poor. I think from the game, it's good that he tweaked it second half because it's good that he recognized it was bad. It's bad that the plan was so horrible in the first half because they were getting a lot of space.
Yeah.
Other teams in the Premier League, even from like Bournemouth, Fulham, Brentford, they'd probably punish you with that space. It's just
Yep.
that's just how bad these two teams are. I don't think we'll see the same against Everton. I'd
Right.
like to see what the pressing system is for that, but against Everton, let's see if they can control the game more, find those gaps if Everton give them, and then see if they can make better decisions in attack because it's scoring goals is a huge problem in this team. You need to score goals in this Premier League season. Quite frankly, it's not. There's always a loss around the corner for any team in this Premier League season, and if you
Yes.
can't score goals, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and I was just discussing with the chat over here when we were getting started how like you look at the goals and the finishing, and like Nottingham Forest, they're in third, Forest are in third in the league, United are in 15th, and if you look at
XG,
their XG, they're identical,
crazy.
and they've scored 41 and we've scored 28, and it's like
Mm,
it's like that can be the difference, and it's like it's so I'm not saying it's unfair, like, but we can overanalyze absolutely everything, Except sometimes if you just if you just score goals, like
Have you tweeted
if
that,
you
by the way? I feel like that would do numbers.
yeah, probably. But if
I
you
might,
just
I
take
might,
the
I might beat you to
chances,
the punch.
you might go for it. Someone pointed it out in the chat, and I was like,
That's
they
insane. I
said,
mean, they have a 17-goal striker,
yeah,
so that might be the big
and
difference.
it's 18 points. But you think about 13 goals, and it's like, I mean, yeah, 13 goals is the difference between, it's three more wins instead of a draw, and it's three more wins instead of a loss, and two more draws instead of a loss. I mean, you can easily add up 15, 12, 15, 18 points, and United are suddenly doing okay, you know. I mean, if we just scored the based on our XG, at least we'd be in like seventh or eighth or something,
Yeah, and if
at
you're
the
seventh or
very
eighth
least.
this year, it means you're not that far off
You're
from.
not bad. Yeah, you're not bad. I mean,
But
Fulham
it's
are eighth, Aston Villa are ninth, and they're in the knockouts of the Champions League. Like you're not bad if you're in the top 10 this year. You kind of take that as a record. So it's kind of funny because one of the things that I find interesting, just from a, I mean, not necessarily from a tactical standpoint, but from a just an overall view standpoint, is like last year United were really bad, and actually worse than this season when you look at the numbers of it, right? Like I think it was on expected points and things like that. They should have been in 15th last year, and we ended up finishing 8th. We got like all these little late winners from McTominay, and the 2 goals in stoppage time against Brentford, and
mm,
all of these things that happened. We conceded more shots than the worst teams in the history of the Premier League, and all of that. And so this year, are we much better than last year? No. But we're not getting we're not getting the luck. You know what I mean?
I love
Like
the
we're not
I love the unequivocal answer. No,
you
no,
know
we're worse. We're worse. But
but we
it's
don't get the luck, like it's like we were getting
yeah.
the little luck that made it look a little bit better. So where we end up finishing 8th, even though it was
There's
worse. And
no
it's like,
finisher in this
yeah,
team.
there's
I
none.
mean, I said this at the time. I said if Ahmad was playing against Tottenham, I think they probably would have scored a couple of
Yep,
goals. He's the top scorer and the
yep,
best player of the season. But you have to move on from the game.
yep,
They went for some bowling this week, and a bite to eat. They've had some rest. They've had a full week of training. So
yes,
let's see if they can do any better against Everton. Basically, in terms of David Moyes and sort of the this new umph that he's given in Everton. What do you think about? Because it feels like the attack is going to pick itself, right?
yeah.
Xerxes, Hoyland, Garnacho.
You gotta keep going with it. It's as good as it gets for now. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. In the press conference as well, Amram said that they're forming relationships now. For the first, and I think we're realizing now why there was more injuries and why Amram was sort of rotating at the start when he came in. There hasn't really been time to form relationships,
Yep.
just because they've constantly chopped and changed.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. And I think it is important. I think Xerxes, getting consistent run out of being that link up guy to the front line in the way that he was against Tottenham, where he can really move around the midfield and he can do things that he can do without losing that runner up front, right? Like that was kind of we always saw like, oh, it's going to be better when Xerxes plays. Oh, it's going to be better when Hoyland plays, and we go back, and it would just keep swinging back and forth
No,
because you lose
constant
one
struggle.
thing to gain the other. But together, there was some good moments, where he could drop deep and Hoyland could run the channel at the same time, and it would create good spaces, and and maybe it helps to solve some of those problems. And I think that honestly, like that there's that relationship, and there's the one with the wing backs, because
Yeah,
it's so integral to the Amram system, right? Like in goal scoring, the wing backs are so important to creating chances,
everything.
because they're the five, that give you the attack. Without them, you don't have anything. You're never going to make an overload. You're never going to have more numbers unless you get those wing backs making those runs.
Absolutely.
And
It's
so that's
they
that's
they create the space wide, and then they
yes,
create the space in the half space. and they
Yes.
have to work together with a winger. It's always, can't stress this enough. I've said it on every single podcast. I'll say it again. 80% of the goals scored for Sporting CP at Amrim,
Yeah.
always cutbacks or crosses from the half space.
Yeah.
The rest was Guy Keres.
Yeah. That
Literally,
was
I
just
don't
him.
know
I know.
oh, the ball's gone loose. Guy Keres will chest it and volley it in somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
it's an important that because the attack picks itself, because Anthony is left, because Rashford is left, because there's am I right in assuming there's one recognized striker kind of Xerxes and Hoyland are the strikers, but Amrim's already said he's not
Yeah.
striker. The next I don't want to pile on a player ever, but the next 15 games are so important for Hoyland
Yeah.
because teams know how to play against Man United, right? They
Yep.
mark the three centre backs, they mark the two midfielders in the middle. If you go wide to a fullback, the opposition fullback pushes up against them. Hey Presto, what's your plan B? Knock it over the top of them to the striker.
Yep.
Do we have a striker that can make it stick? Absolutely not. We
Yeah, I
absolutely
know.
not for the last 5 or 6 games. And if
Yep.
that's your only out ball, that's a big problem. What they did against Tottenham a couple of times I saw was they started knocking it in the channel
Yes.
instead of just to his chest. So okay, fine. Hoyland in the channel is better. He can't really make it stick when he goes to his chest all long. So I want to see more of that. But I think it's a really important rest of season for this attack and for Hoyland. Even not even scoring, it's more so can you contribute to more to this game? Because Amram will probably come up with something, get rid of him. I
Yeah.
don't know, try a false nine. So it's huge for Hoyland in terms of the rest of the season and for the overall attack.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I just like that's where I hope we see some differences. Is like you kind of know how the back line is going to play. You kind of know, you know, in the middle. Um, but the biggest questions, that we have day in and day out are what are the forwards gonna do? When are they gonna put it together? With the striker, with how the striker play is gonna work, with how the wing back's gonna work, with how any of these things are gonna work. Um, what is going to actually happen? And I do think it's a big game for them. For it's a big next few games for Hoyland, for Garnacho. Hoyland's got to make the striker plays. Garnacho's really got to start playing like a real winger. Interplay with those fullbacks. You cannot keep just doing it on your own. You've got to work within the team more than anything. I think is what he's got to show as well, because you can't do it alone. We're not good enough to do it alone. And there's the only way we can be successful in this setup is with these interplays, because like you said, 80% of the goals scored under Amarim have been those cutbacks. It's all team play, and you're not going to get away with not playing within that team. And those are my biggest focuses, but I feel like the things that can be improved, that they can do. It's like,
Yeah,
just look for the fullback, just
those
look for the
those
wing back,
minute details. Yeah,
just get them in, and and something will happen, and
we
something will improve, if you can kind of just get them going, and um so that's really what I'm looking to see, things that they can actually change in the immediate.
it's if they can find those gaps with where the fullbacks are, if Dogu pushes higher, and if Dalla pushes higher, and if they start scoring in front of goal, they just need that one game where they go, okay, this is working now, and we feel a little bit more confident. Because I imagine as well the confidence will be absolutely on the floor just because of how many defeats they've had since Amram has come in as a new guy. So, and the atmosphere right now within the fan base is awful because they get new reports every 2 days of how Jim Ratcliffe is like saving up on tea bags, and he's counting in bin bags, and he's counting his pennies basically. But what do you think happens if they just keep losing now? If say I don't how many games have we got left? 15?
Yeah, for 13 games now.
14.
13, I think, is what it
It's
is.
13. Wow, okay. The season's gone fast. say they lose 8 of them.
I don't think
I
it matters. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it
I,
matters.
I don't think it matters either, but
Yeah.
it matters in terms of a performance.
Yes.
Because if they lose 8 out of 13, say they do that, then they go to next season and he doesn't win his first 6 or first
Yeah.
7, then we could see something.
Look, it definitely puts pressure on him next season to not have a good, for this year to be as bad as it is, right? There's no doubt about that. I think, the factor that's kind of important to note though is that, um, well, I think I think, not really think, I know that they know they put him in a basically an impossible situation, and that,
Mm.
half of the job
Why
was.
did they do this? Do we have any do we have any logical
They,
explanation
there
here?
is. Look, let me give you the basic logic of it, right? So, like, let's say you screwed up. You didn't sack Ten Hag. We agree. Everybody agrees they screwed up. They should have made the change in summer. It's obvious. You make the change in summer. You give the manager time to evaluate the squad when he has a window open to say, who can we move? Who can I bring in? All of that. So you mess that up. You got the wrong guy in. Then you have to make a change, and it's not working. So now you decide: do we just keep going and suffer through it and make the change come summer when we can give them the tools? In a different situation, I would say yes. Okay. Like in a different world, I would say yes. But half of his job coming into this team this season is we need to get rid of a lot of players
Mm,
in order to rebuild this team. They know that. And we need to get rid of a lot of high wage players too. Just financially, if we're going to be able to spend in summer, we have to. So what we really need to know from you, Ruben, which is essentially the discussion, what one of his main jobs was who can we get rid of in this
mm,
team? Even if it leaves you short, we will give you the money in summer. You will get players in summer. We will be able to carry out quite a significant spend, and they will, by the way. Um, the right profiles, young players, not high wages, but they need to know who can you use? Because frankly, I think the way that they've looked at it is because United have never, ever really run the club the right way. They came in and they think, we don't know who are the players that are any good, or are they just people Ten Hag liked? Who are the guys who we can actually use moving forward? Who do we build this team around? We have literally no idea, right? It was interesting, the Varane interview that he gave, where he says, like at Madrid, they know top to bottom everything is planned. How we sign players, who we sign, how you communicate, who's this, who that. They have everything is measured, everything is evaluated to a certain like common thread. And I
mm,
think with Amram, they're basically saying, you're our guy. We trust you. We got to tear this down, and we need to know what the hell that thread is, because we don't even know. What do we have at this
mm,
club? We have no idea how to
mm.
evaluate these players, because the way that Ten Hag was playing was chaos.
Yes.
It's impossible to evaluate players based on last season, right? With the injuries, with the chaotic basketball level of, there was just no way to look at it and say, that guy's good. That guy's shit. We said that, right? Like I
Yeah,
genuinely,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm like,
It's it's harder to for them to come in and say, okay, we're going to play this way because we have X players. Because a lot of the players that were signed with Ten Hag, they were playing a style that was constantly changing. There was
yes,
a,
all the time.
they
Yeah.
was playing a style that was literally changed because of the stadium, whether they were home or away, whether it was like Villa or whether it was a low league team. So if you have a style that's constantly changing and you don't rely on one default one and you don't work that in, it's really hard to build a squad for four,
Yeah.
5, 6 different styles. Um, so in that sense, I get it. Just the other part that I really don't get, and maybe you can fill me in more on this because what you said makes sense. If they already kind of knew that Ten Hag was on the way out, or if they had an inclination of the fact that you can see where I'm going,
Yep.
if they had an inclination of the fact that he basically, if they already kind of knew that they were going to sack him, why did they give him the 300 million?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's mixed, right? Manuel Ugarte, he didn't want. They were like,
Mm,
No, you're getting him. I think truthful, like Lenny Yoro has really nothing to do with Ten Hag either, right? Like Lenny Yoro was like this
He's just a good
unit,
signing.
great. So you
He'll
look at
come
that and
good.
you go, okay, Lenny Yoro, Manuel Ugarte, that's 130 million of our spending, right? In summer. Aside from that, I mean, that's half. Right there, that's
To be
half. That
fair,
has
that's a
nothing
good
to do
one,
with Ten Hag, right? Xerxes, I think, is in the middle. And I'll be quite honest, like I'm not sure his skill set is still so unique. I'm really not sure
yeah.
what the hell he was bought for, but at the same time, I'm kind of like if you can get something out of him, you might have something special. I don't know how or where, but like you look at some of the things he did against Tottenham, and you're like, this is a
he
six
could
foot
he
four
could play
guy
the left hand. He could.
who's moving like you don't see big players move like that on the pitch. You don't see them with those it's like Pogba, in terms of the way he could manipulate the ball at his feet, around players and things. It was very unique. And you think maybe that's just they're just like, what the hell? He's giant. He's incredibly skillful. We'll find a place for him. I think the Delict and Mazraoui ones definitely can be questioned. And I think that there's already stories of that where they're saying, look, Dan Ashworth wanted to like back Ten Hag, and Dan Ashworth's not there either anymore. And he was like, I want to get him some people he knows, to give him that confidence. So and I don't think that Delict and Mazraoui have been, terrible. They weren't that expensive. Obviously, Mazraoui was fairly cheap, but certainly I think um, those ones would probably be different if Amram had been there. So I think it'd be about, maybe two. It'd be a couple different players come in. Um, but I think they started on the vein of recruit. And I can say this at least, right? Lenny Yoro is playing, Ugarte is playing, Delict is playing, Mazraoui is playing, Xerxes is playing. Well, that's a hell of a lot better than all the guys that aren't playing.
Yeah.
Casemiro's only playing in an emergency. Ericsson's only playing in an emergency. Mason Mount is always injured. It's like at least they're playing and they're contributing, and even if a couple don't fit, the other thing they did smart, which I really think matters, is got the wages on reasonable levels. If Xerxes doesn't turn out, they can sell him back to Italy and get their money back this summer, and it won't be an issue. And that's one of the big differences I do think, where it's like, it's a mixed bag, but at the same time, they did it smartly where they haven't done anything unfixable. There's no Antony's. There's no 80 millions. There's no Casemiro's on 350 where it's like you're stuck with them no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So they can recoup and reinvest if it doesn't work on some of those. So I think it's still so silly, because I think it's ridiculous to go in the season with doubts on your manager like that, like they
Yeah.
obviously had. And that is for sure a mistake. But at the same time, I think they hedged against it all right. Because I'd be surprised if more than one of the players they bought is not here next season. I'd be very surprised if more than one of the players they bought is not here next season and contributing still, even though we do need a lot more.
Yeah. I think those are pretty reasonable explanations, at least. But it does just feel as though this umming and ahhing in the summer is still costing. Is
Oh
still
yeah, 100%.
it's been the biggest mistake,
It is.
and it's had ripple effects throughout the whole season, and it will
Yep.
do for some time.
At the
But
end of the day, it's unavoidable. You make that mistake, you sacking a manager mid-season. I said it beforehand. It was why I was like, when it happened, I was like, oh my God, because I knew it. I was like, it's not going to work. They're going to sack him by November and it's going to ruin the season. And there's nothing you can do to fix the season once that happens.
no,
You go short term and cool, you finish 10th instead of 15th. It's like, but it doesn't really set you up for the future, or you go long term and it's ugly, but you kind of have to suffer through it. And it's all payment for the original sin. You can't make up for that original sin of not getting it right in summer.
that's true. It's it was a big boo boo. It's
Yep.
a big bad decision that they made,
Yep.
and they're going to suffer from it for the entire season. I think it's because as well they haven't probably managed a club as big as United. And if you had apprehensions like we all did of last season, because we all know how bad last season was, maybe honestly the FA Cup did turn things around. But I wouldn't change a thing. That FA Cup was brilliant. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we just have to hope we can see the. I think if we see the improvement, and if somehow we pull off, something in the FA Cup again or something in the Europa League again, I feel like we do need something to raise the spirits going
anything,
into summer.
people
Anything,
are
right?
on their knees.
Because the
begging
plan is
anything.
good, but we all need to have some hope to
Absolutely.
back the plan. To feel like, all right, at least we're coming away from the season with something, and that we can carry into this long-term plan, because it's tough when it's always long-term is good, right? When it's always in the future and it's never in the now, there's a point where it's hard for people to keep pushing, to keep believing, to keep motivating, and it's hard for the atmosphere to get there. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
think what we're going to have to do, we'll probably do it again next week. What we're going to have to do is sort of wait for each game by game. And the big notion should be, do teams still know what to do against Man United? Have they come up with a solution yet?
yep,
That is the biggest question
yep,
from now till the
yeah,
end of the season.
yeah, for sure. Well, let's see how Everton goes, and then we'll come back and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Can't wait. I don't know why I'm really looking forward to this game
I
tomorrow.
I, I am too, because I almost wish the games were a little more often now, because I do I said it to you, I think, in some messages, but it's the last point. I know it can be frustrating, but I really do feel like there's a tipping point, and it will tip, and we'll
And I
start
want
just.
that. I want that tipping point. Yeah.
And it's not going to be this isn't an overnight, like everything's suddenly perfect, but it'll tip, and we'll start winning those tight games instead of like drawing and losing them, where it's like we just didn't score that one chance, and that would, like, the scales will tip, and we'll string some things together, and I think it'll be tight, and I think it'll be tough, but I do think we'll start stringing some good together, and it'll feel a lot better then.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Let's see. Thank you. Thank you so much as always for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here, and thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.